and welcome back to another episode of Green Jeans. I am your one co-host, Annika Van Rossum, using pronouns she, her, and I'm joined by my other co-host,
Maya Van Rossum, using pronouns she, her.
And if you couldn't tell by our last names, we are a mother-daughter duo, same last name, and we talk about the social and environmental justice issues through a generational lens, because my mom has been fighting many a battle for many a year that my generation is still fighting today. So that's fun. I also realized we didn't say in the last episode, but this is still coming out in June, so it's great. Happy Pride Month. It's Pride Month.
Happy Pride Month, yes.
That is awesome.
It's superbly awesome.
So yeah, Happy Pride Month. I forgot to say in the last episode. But do you want to introduce our topic today, Mom?
I sure do. I do also want to note, interestingly enough, that you mentioned Pride Month. Of course, people who are listening, not watching, might not visually see. So they might see Van Rossum and think that we are married. But, but you clarify that. Well, you said in case you couldn't tell by our last names.
I guess
it's the same last name.
Well, yeah. But if you see the cover of the podcast.
Yeah, but if you don't.
Okay.
Well, and who knows? Maybe I'm into younger women.
Okay.
So I'm just saying, I would just like to,
you know what,
offer that observation. Okay. Okay, good. So, when it comes to climate politics and the environment, so often, and government, right? So often it is just frustrating because we have these big challenges, and we've got all these elected officials with various kinds of power, and they never seem to use it for the environment. They use it for everything else. They use it for guns. They use it, against abortion rights. They use it in all these different ways, but they don't seem to grab onto their power and use it for the environment. Certainly, President Trump used it very much against the environment. And under the Biden administration, Senators Manchin and Sinema have used their political power against allowing good things to happen for the environment. And so it was very refreshing this past week when I opened up my email, and I was happy to share with you, Annika, considering this is about your future. In no small part, to see that President Biden was taking a really bold step when it came to using his executive authority to do something meaningful for the climate crisis. He announced that he was using the Defense Production Act to be able to take strong progressive action for advancing clean, renewable energy, true clean, renewable energy to address the climate crisis, announcing the climate crisis, of course, to be of, serious concern for our nation, a national security concern, and more. And he was going to use that executive authority to do something good because, frankly, Senators Manchin, Sinema, and those on the conservative side has prevented him from advancing legislation that would do good things. So what do you think?
So this was fun to read about because I've been trying to wrap this brings me back to first year of law school con law, talking about the Defense Production Act. So for people who don't know, it basically authorizes the White House or the presidency to work with like private industry, private actors to like, I don't know how front load, prioritize things that are like important for national security. So it's been used in like the Korean War and like the Cold War, like trying to up steel production was one of the times. It's been so long since I took the course, but I was like, oh, I remember learning about that. And it's cool because so when I was trying to read, there was, who was it? Some jerky person. Maybe okay, exactly. So I was reading, and none other than PA Senator Pat Toomey, Republican, made a comment actually on Twitter. You know what? I'm just gonna say this, like Twitter free space. I'm so tired of politicians going on Twitter and voicing things although it is funny to see them get dragged, the quick side note, since it is Pride Month, is that like Lauren Boebert, the Republican lady that's like, I'm gonna bring my gun to Congress, even though you're not allowed to do that, wrote like tried to like basically say drag shows are illegal or should be illegal because like dangerous things happen at drag shows, and there's all these comments that are like children are assaulted at church. It was like take your kids to church, not drag shows. It was like children are assaulted 10 times more whatever at church than drag shows. So just saying, I'm tired of seeing all these politicians do their stupid stuff on Twitter, but whatever. So Pat Toomey, back on topic. Pat Toomey wrote on Twitter, um basically attacking Biden for this and saying he was using his executive order to advance his global warming agenda, suggesting it's from Fox News, suggesting Congress curtail the act if the administration keeps misusing the DPA for non-defense purposes. And I don't think I brought it with me. Funny enough, so non-defense purposes, I have been reading through a book very slowly. But basically is that, and it is true, is that the Pentagon released a report, and their report is climate change is an issue of national security. So to actually try and say like this is a waste of money, the literal military, like the highest level officers in the military are like, this is national security, which I never thought I would see the military talk about climate change, but it's in a report and there's a whole book on it. Just so screw you, Pat Toomey, you're wrong. Number one. But I mean, like, yeah, and I don't see, and one of the things that I thought was really interesting was in the White House report where they talked about it. Was it says, so one of the things was to create a diverse solar workforce. Um, and we've talked about, you have a good stat, Mom, on like how green jobs are really good. But so in conjunction with that, they said solar industry jobs consistently rank among the top fastest growing in the nation, and many require only a high school education or GED. So basically the point is like that this is a job that is way more available to more people, and I like we constantly know that a lot of people get bachelors, but not everybody can get a bachelor's, and there's a lot of limitations and access to education. And one of the big problems in like coal mining states is that people did that job because they couldn't get higher education to work somewhere else. So this opens like a whole new prioritized workforce that we haven't prioritized because America wants to be elitist AF. Um, but yeah, so I thought that was really cool. I was excited about
Yeah.
that.
That is something that is increasingly recognized about clean energy technologies is they're more accessible to more people regardless of education level, and once you get in, there's greater capacity to rise up in the ranks in terms of the business. And I am sorry for the barking dogs. We got a new puppy, and the new puppy is making noise. So
She's excited about green energy jobs.
She is, and she's having fun. But no, it's really, and there are really great programs taking place in some of the states, which are really around ensuring that training is taking place in BIPOC communities, in low-income communities, in communities that are being harder hit by pollution and degradation, and for whom there's less accessibility to really good quality jobs that can support, people really having good quality lives and access to, being able to buy houses, all sorts of great things, better education for their kids and other things. So it's really wonderful. And so people, I thought, we might talk a little bit about like some of the specific things that this is going to do so people understand. And it is a little bit difficult to understand. But, one of the things people might remember when COVID was happening and the government was trying to get private pharmaceutical companies to really invest the time, energy, and money necessary to create a vaccine, one of the things the government did was they promised to buy a certain quantity of vaccine. So the companies knew that they were guaranteed that income, and it would be therefore economically worthwhile to make the vaccines. And they did, right? And they made these great, helpful vaccines that have saved countless lives. Well, that is one of the things that the Defense Production Act is going to allow um, the government to do, is going to be able to go to like manufacturers of solar panel parts and other clean technologies and promise to buy a certain quantity, because right now a lot of the like solar panels and other things are actually coming from China and other nations.
Mhm.
And I mean, like people always say, we need to drill more in order to become energy independent. And I always say, the absolute opposite is what's true. The gas and the fossil fuels are going to go away in pretty short order. If we want to be truly energy independent, we need to be ramping up on clean energy technologies, because right now, China and Germany and India and other countries are like going all in on clean energy technological development. And if the US doesn't get off its duff and start making the same kind of investments, then we're not going to have things made here in the US, and we're going to have to buy them all from overseas. And so actually that's one of the things that this will do, is it will allow the government to invest in and promise to purchase from US companies for US made clean energy technological parts, pieces, and things. So it'll help ramp up US made clean energy products more quickly. Good for clean energy, good for jobs, good for the environment, good for the economy. So that's going to be one of the ways that it gets used, which is now available because of what the president did.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like I think the crux of, which is why I don't understand why people like Pat Toomey are like, this is bad for America, because it would create such an energy independent nation for us. And like we just saw, like one of the biggest issues, I mean, besides awful war, but like one of the big things with the Russia Ukraine war right now is because like nobody's doing deals with Russia, and that's where the US gets a lot of their oil from. And so then they have to make strategic decisions, and like obviously I think with a dictator like Putin, we just say no. But like, there's all these issues of like, well, then nobody gets gas, and obviously people think it's Biden's fault that gas prices are up and whatever, all that stuff. There's like a lack of understanding of how that all works. But then you wouldn't have to rely on it. And I mean, too, it's like I don't understand, after having, I guess I wasn't alive for this. I don't know if you were. Cuba, the oil thing where like everybody was in like long lines to get gas. Am I thinking of the right thing? Like that after that, there wouldn't have been this prioritization of like, we shouldn't find ourselves in this situation again where we have to rely on somebody else, or if somebody decides to bring war against an innocent nation, that we have to like debate oil versus like the right thing to do. So I don't understand why like this is, I'm glad it's happening. I wish it happened sooner, but I also don't understand the railing against like trying to be energy independent, because that seems like the best thing out of like every priority. I don't know.
Well, of course, the way the industry says is, if you want to be energy independent, you've got to drill and frack more, not acknowledging that they're drilling and fracking for more oil and gas that they're actually sending overseas, not for use in here in
Well,
the US.
that's
It's all a big lie. I
I
mean,
also don't like I personally don't believe, even if you drilled you shouldn't. But if you drilled every single thing, hole, whatever, to supply people in the US with oil, gas, whatever, that it would be enough to make people independent. Maybe you'd get like a year of independence, and then you're right back to like poking another country. Like the we don't I just don't believe it. So I also think like
well, I mean, the first off, a growing proportion of it, as I said, is being
yeah.
drilled and fracked to send overseas. So that's just part of reality, because the fossil fuel companies can make, like 5-7 times the amount of money by selling it overseas versus selling it here in the US. But the other thing is, as you said, there is a limited supply of fossil fuels. So whether it's 1 year, 2 year, 10 years, I mean, those fossil fuels are going to go away. Another thing that's been demonstrated, that the industry itself acknowledges, not publicly, but but publicly in their scientific research and papers, is that as soon as a frac gas well gets tapped, the amount of gas that actually comes out of that well drops off precipitously
Mhm.
after a very short period of time, and that's why they need to tap more wells, because it just drops off, and a lot of the gas actually is inaccessible using current technologies. And so some people use the argument, that, well, if you really truly want to be responsible, then you would wait till the technology advanced, so that when you drilled a well, you would get every drop of gas, not just 6% of the gas or some low percentage of what's actually in there. But that's a whole nother. But as you said, the gas is going to go away. It's going to go away. There's a limited supply. It's going to go away. And when it goes away, if we don't have clean energy technologies here, then we are truly dependent on foreign sources of energy, which leads beautifully in to another one of the ways the Defense Production Act is going to be used. Apparently, what's happening right now is solar installations are slowing down because tariffs are coming into play on solar panels that are coming from Southeast Asia, from foreign countries, and or are, I think, coming online and or are anticipated. And so the solar companies are worried because they don't know what the price is going to be, and so they're slowing down their installation of projects because they don't want to plan a whole bunch of projects and then sort of be hit with these high prices because of these tariffs. And so one of the things that the president is going to do is put in place a freeze on these tariffs, so that companies can know what the cost is going to be to them to buy the parts they need to do solar installations here in the US using those foreign products, items, solar panels. But then also during that 2 years, right, as we said, the act is being used in a variety of ways to really ramp up clean energy production, solar panel creation, all the things you need to make all the parts that are needed to advance a clean energy project here in the US. So it's sort of like this great complement. We're going to help keep prices low of what you need from what's coming overseas, so you can continue installing clean energy projects, creating jobs, getting clean energy, building the industry. And then during this 2-year freeze, we're at the same time going to be investing to ramp up the clean energy industry here in the US. So at the end of the 2 years, you're not going to need to buy that technology and those parts from foreign sources, because now we're going to have US sources for that stuff that you can buy from. So I think it's a really cool, forward thinking complement, that's going to help clean energy and, again, help support and increase jobs and economic development while enhancing the environment. It's really great.
I also really liked at the end of the White House report on what they're doing, like one of the plans is to um work with Puerto Rico to help them reach 100% renewable energy resiliency, which like one of my things has always been, I mean, for people who don't know, Puerto Rico can't vote even though they're a US territory, which is ridiculous. I don't understand this whole concept of like we're going to keep you as a territory but not help you with anything. So I think it's really great trying to give them that independent help with that independence as well, because like I think the US does owe them a lot more than we've been doing, and obviously it's a lot better than throwing paper towels at people after a hurricane. If anyone remembers that clip. But I thought that was really cool, and I think it's like something that the US has like not been prioritizing Puerto Rico for a long time, and so I'm really glad that they're also putting that in the plan.
Yeah, I thought that, and similarly, again, trying to think about how to be well rounded. Um, my understanding from the plan is the other thing that they're going to do in terms of deciding on where the government is going to invest their dollars to help ramp up um, manufacturing and development here in the US, is they're going to be seeking to invest in companies that pay higher sustainable wages And it also sounds like seeking to invest in companies that believe in union organizing. That's the way I read what I read. So that's really great. Unions have been so important here in the United States to really help protect workers. And in recent years, there have been lots of efforts to undermine unions, um, and to either break them up, to prevent their creation, and simply to just denigrate them as being something bad and a way to protect bad workers. And that is not what unions are about. Unions are about protecting the workers so they can do good quality work and have good quality lives. And so to have the president recognize the importance of unions, union organizing, that kind of approach to the protection of workers and good paying jobs through how they're going to do their investments. I think it's just another super smart, forward thinking way of recognizing that, it's not about jobs or the environment. It's not about, profits and worker pay. It's like we can accomplish it all if we do it smartly and in a well-rounded, comprehensive way. And that's what this is looking to do.
And I like too, it was saying how there's like working with 17 local communities to help remove any red tape. And so there would be an online process that would enable same day approvals for residential solar installation permits. So I thought that was really great so people can like get that done right away because I do think that's a deterrent for a lot of people in the sense of like you not only have to figure out where you're going to purchase them from, but how are they going to get installed? And I don't like do we have to get permits for solar panels on our
Oh,
house?
absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I don't know the process. So yeah, I can see how that's just like I just don't want to deal with the paperwork, and I don't
And
want
it's
to have to wait.
costly. You
Yeah.
have to do it's costly, it's time consuming. It's a big deal.
Well, just going off that too, I thought I like to. It seems like there's going to be a big investment also with the solar panels in like rural communities, and with low income communities. But I don't know. I think something about rural communities also I think is a big deal just in the sense of like I do think there's a lot of I don't want to make assumptions about farmers, but I do think there's a concept that like a lot of rural communities are Republican or right leaning. And I personally don't think that today's Republican Party or right leaning party has really been doing anything to help rural workers and are just kind of doing this weird manipulative, like, well, the Democrats aren't going to help you. They're actually only high influential and they're going to raise taxes when it's really like the opposite. So I'm hoping that this like really does also help. And also like rural communities are limited in so many ways. Like there's so much less access to a lot of things that people living in cities or metropolitan areas have. So I think giving assistance also with lowering energy costs because running a farm is really expensive, or like if something breaks, it's a lot to deal with. So I think that will be also really great.
And on the flip side, it's also talking about the different ways, whether it's through permitting, whether it's through helping people find the sources of grants, or economic support to install panels on their homes, or I think even, financial support. It's also going to help put rooftop solar and other projects in urban areas, particularly environmental justice areas. And I was talking with a gentleman at the that runs the cafeteria in the State House in Trenton, and he was talking about how, he has this house and he's living there alone, and he's got a really high um, heating bill, and he doesn't know, and electric bill, sorry, not heating bill, electric bill, and he doesn't know what to do. He can't really afford to move, and he can't really afford to pay for the electricity. And he had mentioned that he had been talking with another guy he knows at the State House, somebody who, is a staffer there, who was talking about, oh, how great it is to get solar panels and everything. And he's like, well, how am I going to get solar panels? I can't afford to pay my electric bill. How am I going to pay to get solar panels on my roof? Now, there are programs that companies do where they say that they cover the costs, and then I don't know, there are all sorts of mechanisms. But I mean, it's really like, I mean, so true. And then And yet, like when we think about solar and solar installations, people are like, oh, these big solar farms, they're so big, they're ugly, whatever it is they say. A fracking well pad is friggin' ugly. But think about all that rooftop space in all those cities. If every house had solar panels that supported their energy use and created extra energy that could go back into the grid, like how amazing that would be. So again, just another forward thinking way. And it's not just a concept. Talking with this gentleman, he was talking about not having enough money to buy food because he had to pay his electric bill. And like what was he going, and just talking about how hard it was for him. This helps people like that while helping the environment, because if he can get solar panels, it reduces his energy costs, and that's huge. It's huge. So I thought that also, again, just another really relevant, and making sure, and this is another thing that urban communities talk about a lot, like, not only do we want access to the panels and the energy, we want the jobs. Like, put solar, manufacturing, or create, like, don't give us the petrochemical industry. Give us a place to help be part of the clean energy future and get the benefit of the panels and and all that technology, and also get the jobs. Let us make the panels and make the technology that can then be used in our communities. So we get the jobs, we get the income, we get the energy creation that will also help support and sustain our lives. And it sounds like this plan includes all aspects of that sort of circle of life, so to speak.
And I think too, like the jobs part is also like actually being able to work in a job that helps your community also. Like people who I'm not saying they're bad people, obviously, but people who are working on fracking well pads and that's the only job they can get are like unfortunately active participants in poisoning the local community. I mean, also a lot of fracking workers are actually like out of state people, so they're poisoning communities they're not even a part of. Um, but like that's the thing. Yeah, if you don't like a solar panel field, first off, there's a lot of alternatives to it. Like not every solar project is going to be one large field. Like yeah, you can work on different rooftops. You can have just a few panels. Like the new ones obviously like there's always like the direction of the sun and the new panels are kind of able to like rotate with the sun throughout the day. Um but if you're doing a fracking well pad, you have the hundreds of chemicals that we don't actually know are what's in it because of Halliburton loophole, and they don't have to tell us because it's an industry secret. You have the runoff from those chemicals that we've seen give people cancer, poison livestock, kill people's pets, ruin their agriculture, like whatever it is. And then also, like, yeah, it's so limited. So those, and then destroying the land and then just picking up and going somewhere else and doing it to another community. Whereas this is you're like creating a product in a more affordable way, hopefully with more Americans being able to actually be the ones building it and then just having it right made here in the US rather than having to do the shipping. Um, to support communities and make it more affordable across the board. And then yeah, like hopefully we would have more people that cuz that is. I mean, I don't think like people understand too like if you have an electric kettle, that costs something. If you have a lamp in your house, that costs something. Running your AC unit in the summer, that costs something. So, like, there's a lot of people who, yeah, that I don't think a lot of people think about the choices people have to make what to run in their home because they might not be able to afford food the next day.
To me, like, dude, man, and all the other politicians, that are going to come online with his kind of back ass thinking, and somehow just diss this. Why don't you look at it, right? I mean, it's all about made in America products, supporting good American jobs, supporting good American quality of life, making America the world leader on the clean energy stage, not the follower. These are all things that should be valued priorities of all politicians and conservative politicians, in every other arena. Applaud this kind of thing. It was so great, when Trump and they used the Defense Production Act for whatever they called their COVID thing. But now when Biden wants to use it in this really powerful sustainable way that's going to save future kids that aren't even born from a devastating life. Now suddenly, oh, this is a bad thing. Made in America. We don't really care about that. Yeah, let's get it made in a foreign nation and sent over here with huge tariffs. And and that's the thing. The hypocrisy blows my mind.
Yeah, I just don't like, I don't get it. Like, I wish there was a plausible explanation, but there isn't one. Like, that is my biggest thing with these people is I'm like, "You don't even make sense." Or you say stuff like Lauren Boebert, like, really, like, that is the most basic, take your kids to church rather than a drag show. Like, I know that's but are you kidding? Like, are you literally not thinking about what has happened to children, like, across this country for decades? Like, it's not a recent thing, it only just got discovered, but decades, but where it's like, but yeah, like, your climate change agenda. It's not an agenda, it's a fucking thing that's happening, and, like, fuck you, Pat Toomey, you're part of the problem, you're part of the reason it's happening. Um, like, I feel like every time we talk about this, like, I can only imagine how frustrating it is for you. Like, again, we do this whole generational thing, but, like, I feel like you're kind of there, like, the precipice of, like, the tapping of scientists being like, "Hi, there's a little bit of a problem," and I'm kind of in the, like, the red zone, like, I don't know.
By the way, the other thing I want to make sure that we don't forget to add is there's a lot in this proposal, which is about using public lands for clean energy projects. And people are going to say, "Oh, public lands, they belong to the public." Yeah, well, right now, federal lands, state lands are being turned over to the fossil fuel industry, right? We've got well pads all over the place on public lands. So, this is a positive development and a positive way, as long as, again, there's always a right and a wrong place, as long as we're not talking about, putting the solar arrays or the wind turbines in the wrong places on public lands. Like there are wrong places for clean energy technologies. When one company wanted to put in place, it was something like 68 or 168 wind turbines in the Delaware Bay, part of the Atlantic Flyway, right where all these birds are flying. Bad idea. We were opposed. So there are wrong places, but there are a lot of right places. And so having government rethink, if we're going to use public lands in terms of energy development or support, let's not use it for the fossil fuel industry. Let's use it for clean energy technologies. I thought that was really powerful. And the other thing is they do talk about supporting hydrogen. Note. You hear Annika and I talk a lot about gray hydrogen and blue hydrogen being bad. It talks about green hydrogen. Green hydrogen is actually the one that's good when it comes to the climate. It is costly, it is difficult, but it's good for the climate, whereas blue and gray hydrogen
We
aren't.
have if you're, like, not sure and you wanna go all the way back, I think it's, like, episode 4? Episode 4, we have, Karen Ferridan come on. No, isn't it? I don't know. I'll have to look back. You gotta go way back, and there's something we have an episode with Karen Ferridan. It was great, and Karen basically breaks down everything. Carbon capture, episode 9. There we go. Karen breaks down everything about, like, the problems with green and gray and blue hydrogen, all the colors. So if you're curious, you should go check it out. And also on the public lands front, we also, of course, like, there's a lot of overlap with public lands and, like, Native American um property and, like, tribal lands, like national parks that are also, like, sacred to Native Americans and, like, ancestral rights. So obviously also not doing, like, how the pipelines are always like, well, the white people don't want the pipeline in their backyard, so we'll just pick this Native American land and cut it through there. So it's like being conscious of those communities, like not doing the whole like eyesore or problem for somebody else, just not white people. But yeah, I think you made a great point with that, Mom.
And you did say how it must be so frustrating. Yes, it is very frustrating.
I don't know.
But but I also losing, all these threads that we've got, right? We want to cover so much, it's, what is it? As my husband, your bonus dad says, follow the bouncing ball. So we got a little bit of that going on with today's show, but just wanting to make people know about this like really hot piece of news and what it actually means, and that it means something good. And if you hear people denigrating it and what the president is doing, I don't think that that's fair. I think that this is good. But you had commented about, how, was I around when, at the time when there were the gas lines?
Mhm.
So I don't remember like what was happening or why it was happening. I was too young to be aware of that. But I do remember being in long lines at the gas station in your car. I do remember, and the day you got your gas depended on whether your license plate ended in an odd number or an even number. So like that was a big deal. And I remember my parents getting a, what type of car it was. It was something Rabbit, because it was going to be much more efficient on gas, and like having to wait for that. And then when that came, that was a big deal. And it was in the early stages when cars actually, it started to be more common to have air conditioning, but we couldn't run the air conditioning because that required more gas. You know, so I think that was around the same time.
I
But
think it's the same
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
I think
So
you're talking
it
about the same, yeah.
yeah. So but it was really, I do just remember the long lines at the gas station, and people sitting there and you're waiting for your gas, and you're hoping that you're not going to be the person that the gas runs out just when you get up to the gas pump.
Mm.
And that did happen to people waiting, right? You'd have to schedule. It's like now for COVID, like society got reoriented for like how to deal with COVID and work at home and all that. Well, things had to get reoriented. If it was your day to be able to get gas, you know, somehow your work and your life had to accommodate spending the time necessary to wait in line and get gas. And they, like, again, if you got to the gas station finally and then the gas was suddenly gone, oh boy, that was a bummer.
Well, it's like, so if you don't wanna do that again, maybe we should be energy independent with green energy. I think, like, the equivalent to it now, which is there's, like, all these memes, or all these photos making fun of people where basically, which is, like, because the gas prices went up, and I think because people were like, "We're not like, Biden's gonna make it so we can't get gas anymore." People were going up to the pumps, and it was just all these photos of like all the different ways people were stocking up on gas, and it like doesn't make sense. Like filling up Target, one is like a guy literally carrying plastic Target bags of gasoline.
What?
It'd be like because people were like, I'm not gonna be able to get gas. So they
Well,
were like,
wait. But how did the gas not pour out of the
I
Target
don't
bag?
know. It's just him carrying it. I don't know what he
That
did
can't be
after.
real. That
Yes,
must
it
be.
is. No, there's one. There was another one. A guy like took a video and he went to talk to the guy, which I was watching it and I was like, this feels like my
Uh,
torts exam come to life, which torts is personal injury. This guy put like, the blue tarp in the back of his truck bed and is just holding the pump, filling his truck bed with gasoline in
I
this
think, isn't
tarp.
that illegal because you have emissions and all that come off that
I'm
volatilize off?
probably, but nobody's I don't know if the people at the gas station know that. Maybe, like, the EPA does,
Well,
and
that's why you like when you put your, there's that special covering on the gas things when you put the nozzle in to prevent, from volatilizing off and out of your gas tank.
I
That's
think you're the only one
insane.
that knows that because I didn't know that. But, like, it's
That's
all dripping out of
insane.
his truck, and the guy goes up to tell him, he's like, "Dude, like, you're because if somebody collided with him,"
Oh my gosh.
but it's just like, are people filling
Was
up
the
the
guy smoking a cigarette too? Like,
who knows? I didn't see it, but who knows what he did when he got home. And, like, people filling up their moving tubs. Point is, people were, like, filling up things with gas, which, number 1, I'm also pretty certain, I'm not a scientist, but because gas is a liquid, it will evaporate. So
yes.
you only have so much time. I don't know how you get it from the tub to your then gas tank, but whatever, people. But so if you don't want to go through that, that's the other thing too. I'm like, again, I don't understand. If you're so freaked out about gas disappearing, then you should be the first ones on the Senate floor or in front of the Capitol and being like, solar. wind power, geothermal, let's go. And you
Yeah,
don't have
get
to
me in,
worry
like,
about it.
right, like, make electric cars. I mean,
Get me a
they're
subsidy so I can afford the
right,
new electric truck. Like,
right,
come on. I
right.
don't that's what I don't get is I'm like, like with these people, I'm like, we are trying to help you. We're trying to help you. And they don't
This is all
get it.
insane. I mean, this is the, it's just, I can't,
See,
it's insane.
this is where the generational part of this comes in because I'm spending way more time surfing the internet. So my mom gets to hear about this.
Yeah, because I
Doesn't see
don't,
it, but I see it.
I mean, I can't, I'm holding my head in my hands. I'm just
I'm
like, I
I'll find
can't even, I can't even,
it was
I
like
mean, it's just absurdly stupid.
I
I
know,
like,
I don't
just,
get it.
how about you just like get on a bike and ride a bike somewhere, right? Like, I remember when I was growing up, and when we needed to get some things from the supermarket, and it was around that gas saving time, but also just in general, it was a decent ride. But if it wasn't the full shop week and my mom needed a couple of things, she would put the saddlebags on her bike and she would ride the 45 minutes, half hour, 45 minutes to the supermarket, buy those things, put them in her saddlebags, and ride home. And there would be times when she would ask me to do it. And, and that's what you needed to get something from the pharmacy. Um, it wasn't terribly far away. So why drive your car? How about riding your bike? How about walking? How about, right? There are lots of other options. So this idea of filling up plastic Target bags is
I don't
just insane.
I mean,
I mean, it's just there's
I'm
so many
really
other better options. It's just
I'm really
crazy.
sure like somebody went on, I don't know, like there was some like QAnon or I don't know what that
To say
website
it
is that
safe.
all those like January 6th people went on that told them what to do, but like one of those, I forget what it's called, but it's like one of those where I'm sure it was like gas is going to disappear and Biden's going to take it away from all of you.
Yeah.
And blah, 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 blah. But yeah, so green energy, you guys, everybody should want it. But also, if you're freaked out about there not being gas, which is a very likely thing if you keep taking it all out and it's not a renewable energy, it's a fossil fuel. There's only so many fossils left.
Yeah. And in truth, to be honest, I'm not thinking about the gas prices because we have our electric cars. So
Exactly. Yeah.
plug it in, got the solar panels, did make that investment, did have the ability to do that, had to take a mortgage on the house and things. It wasn't cheap, but made that investment. But at this point, I'm not worried about those gas prices. And so that's just fun.
There you
And with
go.
that, I think we've explored how, a president could, being forward thinking, could use a powerful tool that is so often not used in the right way or is not used for the environment, and important things like the climate crisis. Joe Biden is now using it. And by the way, to me and others, maybe he wouldn't have used it if you had supported the Build Back Better bill. Now, there were some bad things in that, but there were a lot of good things. Bad things in terms of fossil fuel support, but a lot on clean energy. So if you didn't want him to have to use his power this way, then you should have done your job as a legislator and come up with a legislative option. But you didn't. You stonewalled. You didn't want a solution, just like you don't want a solution on gun control. You don't want any solution on any problem. You just want a stalemate, and to score political points on Twitter or wherever. Well, you know what? I am really glad that President Biden is using his executive authority this way. Kudos. And when he got elected to office, I never expected that we would do an entire podcast show applauding such a proactive
Me
step.
neither. I got
And
worried.
I'm so glad that we have been proven wrong.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Lots to work on, Joe, but also some pleasant surprises along the way. As always, you shouldn't blindly follow a president because if you do, you're not paying attention. Um, so with that, I think that is our podcast. We hope you enjoyed, and we will see you next time.
See See you next time.